All right. While we wait for people to file into the room, we will have a little dead air time here. So we'll fill some dead air. Behind me is Christine. I told you. Do you remember? Actually, I don't know if I ever told you the name of the mountain.
I
I
don't
did
think you did. You
where
told me it
it
was
is.
in New Mexico. That was as far as
There
I
you
got.
go. It is in New Mexico. It's at the Boy Scout Ranch, Philmont Scout Ranch in New Mexico. I can't remember the name of the town, but that is called Mount Baldy. I think elevation was like 12.8 or 12.582 or something like that. It was a great trip. Great trip in July. So let's see here. I want to keep with our theme. Last session, we did ask a couple of questions just while we waited on people to file into the room. One of them was, what's your favorite color?
Purple.
Purple. All right. What is your favorite city to visit?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I love so many. I love Scottsdale. I also absolutely love my husband's hometown in middle of nowhere, St. Agatha, Maine, which is like right on the Edmonton, Canada border.
Okay.
So we'll go with those two.
There we go. And then we had three speakers on the last one, so I'll ask you all three. And then
Okay.
the other one was what was I think it was favorite food. Yeah, it was. Well, I probably asked you that before, but what's your favorite food?
That's a hard one too, because I'm such a foodie. So it changes depending on my mood. I love anything authentic. So, like authentic, good Mexican food, Greek food, Indian food, Vietnamese food, Thai food, like anything authentic.
Oh, there we go. We don't have a lot. We do have Vietnamese around here. We've got a lot of Korean restaurants around here. There's a
I'll
heavy
take
Korean
it.
population. We've got some really good Indian restaurants around here. We have a pretty high Indian population. So we've got a
I
good variety
love a
of,
good curry.
yeah, we do. Yeah, we've got a nice variety. Which one is I guess is it Thai? That's the like the noodle bowls, like pho, PHO.
Yeah, either usually Thai or Vietnamese restaurants will
Yeah.
sometimes have their version of them too. So good.
Yeah, yeah, I really, really like that. The one that we really like the most closed, unfortunately, but
Oh.
there's a couple others. They smell so good when you walk in. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
like about it. Like I don't even have to eat; I can just like smell. So, all right, I guess I should do some work here. So let me move this so I'm not staring up there. There we go. I'll be looking at the screen, do it the right way. So, all right, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for Insightful Accountants Future Forward Summit. This is session 2, day 1. My name is Gary Dehart, and I'm the publisher of Insightful Accountant and the host of Accounting Insiders podcast, as well as the host of the Future Forward Summit. Our second session today, and sorry, that's my dog if you hear her in the background, sorry about that. Today's second session is our TPN Tax Talks, and it's on leveraging technology to integrate tax consulting services. Our speaker is Christine Gervais. Christine is editor of Tax Practice News, as well as host of our TPN Tax Talks webinar series. She is the only person that I know who is working on a doctorate in accounting. I'll have her introduce herself after I cover the housekeeping items, but I do seriously believe that considering a doctorate in accounting pretty much says it all. Um, so this session does qualify for CPE. You must be present for 50 minutes, 50 minutes. You must answer 3 polling questions, and we only have 3. So guess what? You need to answer them all. So meet these 2 requirements, and we will send you an email with a link to a short survey. Complete that survey, and we'll send you your certificate. The recording will be posted on our YouTube page. The link will be sent to you along with the link to the slide deck within about 24 hours. Once I turn this over to Christine, I will also put that link to our YouTube page in the chat, and I will also drop the slide deck into the chat as well. So if you do have any questions during the session, place them in the Q&A panel. Be sure you ask a specific question or make a specific reference to the topic, since Christine may not be able to answer it right when you post it. 5 minutes might go by. She's already covered 2 or 3 other things. So just be real specific in your question if you have any. So this session is brought to you by Landy Insurance. Landy's accountants professional liability insurance program covers accountants, bookkeepers, enrolled agents, and tax preparers for services provided in their accounting practices. So their broad definition of professional services includes more than accounting. It also includes financial planning, consulting, consulting, notary public, fiduciary, investment advisor, and arbitrator mediator. So Landy has you covered. So I will stop there, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Christine. Thank you so much for being here, and it is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. All right, let's always the hard part. We're going to share the screen and get the slide deck up for everybody. Welcome, welcome. All right, there we go. So as Gary mentioned, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box for me. I'm just going to make sure that we have that Q&A box open so that I can see it. I love an interactive presentation, so don't hesitate to ask any questions. I will do my absolute best to answer them real time for you. And let's take it away. So as Gary mentioned, my name is Christine Gervais. I've been a licensed CPA for a little over 13 years now, been running my own practice since 2016. My area of expertise, I would say, is small, closely held businesses and a lot of tax work. So a long time ago, I came from a general practitioner background, both audit work, CFO style work, but have been running my own small tax practice for the better part of 7-ish years now. And so that's a lot of the perspective that I'll bring to the table today. Is just that how do we enhance the service offerings that you are going to provide in your small practice, and how do we do that in a way where we're leveraging technology and really being efficient so that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck in terms of your tiny amounts of time that we all have. And again, just thank you to Landy Insurance for sponsoring today. So just really quickly, we'll go through some of the key points that I'm going to hit on. Gary mentioned that the link to the YouTube channel will also be provided. I have a link at the end for you as well. We would love to see you on next month's Tax Talk if you decide that today was helpful to you. And I really enjoy providing topics like this as often as possible, because I certainly appreciate how challenging it can be for us sometimes in really making sure that we're moving the ball forward on our own practices. So things that we're going to talk about, the benefit of value add services. So most of what we're talking about today is not specific to tax preparation services, but kind of that next level of consulting and advisory services, which we'll talk about what value add pricing is and why that's beneficial in these particular cases, but what that can really do to bring some positive growth to your firm. How to create time in your practice to enhance your services. So that one's going to be the key one. Is just all of us are so busy. So where are we going to create the time for this? The technology to support that efficiency creation. So I'll give you some really specific pieces of software and apps that I like to use that I think help to provide some automation and things that you can implement on a budget that will help. Some tips to roll out new services to clients. So if you leave here thinking that you do want to add on to your advisory services, your tax planning services, how do you kind of announce that to your clients and let them know, or roll that out to new prospective clients? And then we'll take questions, and I'll leave you with some actionable next steps that you can walk away with today for things that you might actually be able to start doing or thinking about this afternoon if you want to take the next step for some of what we're going to discuss. So we're really talking about adding to your practice positively. And what I mean by that is not just adding revenue for the sake of revenue. So this is a really thoughtful process that we're going to go through to think about why you would add additional consulting type services for your clients, what the benefits of those are. And to really understand why we would want to do that, we have to look at what our clients are asking for and the reasons why they might not necessarily stay with a firm that they're currently working with. So I can just share from personal experience that the majority of new clients that come to us are leaving their old firm because they are not getting really great communication. They're saying that their accountant isn't responsive, or the other top one is that they're not proactive, that they feel like they're just basically getting some data entry into a tax return every single year, but no proactive conversation is being had with them to talk about how they might reduce their tax liability, what they should be doing with their money, how they should be saving for retirement. Those types of really forward thinking conversations is what clients are looking for, in addition to that higher level of touch when it comes to communication. 68% of tax prep clients want some type of an advisory service. So that's more than half of your existing clients are saying that they would like some type of an advisory service. And maybe you're already providing that, and that's awesome. We'll talk about some ways to help you do it more efficiently today. So let's just pause for a second. I'll see if Gary wants to sneak in our first polling question here and ask how many of you are offering advisory services in your practices right now, or you're looking to maybe offer some more advisory services in your practice. I'm curious, what the statistic is of some of you here today in terms of whether you are or aren't offering those at the moment.
All right, bear with me 1 second. I want to make sure I post the correct question. What type of technology? Okay, this seems to be it's worded a little differently, so I just want to make sure I had the right one.
Oh, yes. I think that's my fault. That looks like a little typo in there. So, would your firm offer more consulting and ancillary tax services if technology were able to provide more efficiency? So, how many of you are looking to be able to offer more of these advisory, consulting, strategy type services to your clients if you were able to do it in a way that wasn't going to make you feel like you were just adding hours to your day? Hopefully, this is most of you.
All right, we'll leave this open for about 5 more seconds. We've got a pretty good percentage participating here. So if you need that CPE, go ahead and complete this, and we'll lock this down in about 3, 2, and 1.
Perfect. Awesome. So most of you looking to add those additional services, which is great because your clients are looking for them as well. So obviously we have some challenges to doing this, right? I think honestly, if there weren't challenges involved, all of us would say, yes, we want to add additional service offerings to our practice. It just makes sense. But of course, we have time constraints being the biggest one, that so many of us feel that there's just not simply any more time in our day to add work. 99% of accountants will report that they experience burnout. Most of the time, some of the time, it happens to all of us, which is why we're really going to focus on some things that you can take away today that is going to provide you with some more automation, some easier ways to get good information to provide advisory services without adding a lot of manual work to your plate. But you're also going to be constrained by the knowledge base that you have on your team. You might not have a team that is really experienced enough to provide advisory level services, or not yet anyways. And so you have to think about that knowledge base, where the education gaps might be. And then of course, we have to also think about how profitable is this going to be to our organization. So we do have that sort of fine balance between how much are we adding versus how much time is going into these projects. And that can be a little bit harder to determine, especially on new services. And of course, we are going to talk about value-based pricing for these as well. But these are some of the key challenges that you're going to face. And we'll kind of touch on how we overcome some of these things in an effective way so that you are able to efficiently start adding some of these services to your practice. So let's talk about value-based pricing, because I've mentioned this a couple of times. I really believe that this is the way to go when it comes to specifically advisory level services, because it's just not really something that lends itself to what I would consider the traditional hourly model. I think that truly accounting firms want to get away from the hourly model in general, and we should be moving more towards value-based pricing and flat fee pricing models, just because that's what our clients are asking for. They're more popular pricing structures, but that can be difficult to do if your practice is still in that hourly space. You have to really work to try and figure out project by project how to price everything. So value-based pricing is different from a flat fee model in that the value price, the price that you're going to ask the client for, is really going to be contingent upon project by project. And truly what value-based pricing is that it's a price point that's set where the client is willing to pay it because they see the value of what they are receiving. And so it could be any number of different sort of litmus tests that you use to figure this out. I still do roughly use about, how many hours of my time is this going to take? But rather than just taking hours of time and adding a certain percentage of gross profit that I want to get to, I'm really sort of feeling my way out of what is the best value based price for me to charge for these projects. So if I have a really complicated client who might have a couple of different companies that they own. Maybe we're consolidating some things. Maybe they have a trust for their children. We've got a lot of different arms here of things that we need to look at from a planning perspective. It's not as simple as just looking at their personal tax return. That's what I would consider to be several $1,000s a year worth of advising and consulting services, depending on how often we're talking, how often we want projections to be rerun. And so that is where I'm going to start to back into, what would this project look like? Maybe I break it down into a nice monthly budget for them. But that's essentially what value-based pricing is. Now, my client might be willing to pay an inflated fee for this. So they might be willing to pay me $10,000 a year for really great strategy planning and consulting services, because those conversations theoretically are going to save my client more money in the long run than it's costing him in my advisory. So that value to the client is really there to go ahead and pay that price for the service they're receiving, because they perceive it to be worth, so much more to them than what the actual cost is. So using it for planning, consulting, and strategy services, the reason I think it's so important for these types of services is because we want to do a good job at this, right? Like, we're so constrained with time. What you don't want is to start offering planning services, and what you're really doing is you're just sort of like back of napkin, running some numbers and giving your clients their estimated payment vouchers and saying, good luck, I'll see you next year. That's not really the advisory services that they're looking for. And truly, most of us can just do that with our tax software. So clients really want something that's more hands-on, more forward-thinking and proactive, someone who's having conversations with them throughout the year, who's really advising them in terms of making those decisions before, instead of looking at the decisions that those clients have made after the fact and saying, ooh, I would have done something different there. They want to have this be an ongoing conversation. And so that can be scary when you tell them, hey, this is an hourly project. It's also really detrimental to the conversation going back and forth. If you want to do a great job providing planning, consulting, and advisory services to your client, you need to make them feel like there is an open dialogue. Not that they necessarily need to be texting you at 10 o'clock at night about whether or not they can buy a motorcycle or anything like that. We do still have to have boundaries, but you want them to not be afraid to come and ask you a question. If they're afraid that they're just going to get a bill for every 15-minute phone call that they have with you because this is set up as an hourly project, you're not going to get the information that you need during the year from them to really provide them with strong advisory services, which means the client's not going to be happy with the advisory services they're paying you for, because they're going to feel like their perceived value is too low for the cost. So that's one of the benefits that I really see with this value-based pricing, is that you can really charge what you're worth to do these projects, they are a higher level of service, and your clients are if you're able to structure this to do it really well and make them feel like they're really getting that perceived value, your clients will be happy to pay for it as well. Remember, more than half of your clients are already looking for these services. So that's also where this value-based pricing can provide a big benefit to your practice. And one of the reasons why I encourage firms to look at it for more than just planning and advisory services. When we look at value-based pricing, holistically across the practice for every service that we're offering, it really provides an opportunity for us to generate revenue in a way that's more positive on both sides of the table. It results in happier clients getting more of the things that they need at a price point that really supports the revenue growth of the firm. And unlike the hourly model, I also think that it really supports our ability as the burnt out, the 99% burnt out accountants. It really supports our ability to choose more wisely which clients we spend our time on and which clients are really the most beneficial to our practice, as opposed to that sort of hamster wheel feeling that we get from being so hyper focused on the billable hour. So I want to just set the stage with that, because I think it's such an important piece to consider if you're going to add or enhance advisory and consulting services. And as I mentioned, I really encourage you to look at every area of your practice and any area that still has kind of an hourly focus to consider whether or not a strategic change there is something that would be beneficial for you. So then how do we highlight the value? How do we really put on display to our clients the value that we are providing? We know that they want advisory services, but if we tell them all, and I'm just using this as an example, if we tell them all it's going to cost you $10,000 a year to get these beautiful services, are they going to perceive that the value they're getting right away is worth that much? It really depends on your client. But truly, we probably need to do a little bit of work to educate them in terms of what it is that we're bringing to the table for that price point. And again, I'm just using that as an example. Every one of your projects will be different. Every one of your firms are going to be different because your clients are going to not necessarily look the same. But things that can help you to illustrate your value and to bring more value to the table would be considering a niche, a focus, especially in tax land. I think that there is just so much that we can't possibly be good at everything. I am definitely a little bit more spread out in terms of the types of clients that our practice works with. But if I had to tell you what I think that the majority of my focus is, it would be closely held S corporations, and where I have an opportunity to work with not just the business, but the owner. And then there's some level of succession planning and kind of next generation planning that we're going to have to deal with there. That makes up a good portion of the work that we receive. And so that's something that you can look at in your practice to kind of figure out, do we sort of have a naturally forming niche here? Is there kind of a naturally formed focus where the majority of our clients fit into this bucket? And that might be an area that's easy for you to develop these services in because you're already doing so much work in that space. You could also consider a niche from the perspective of an industry that you want to focus on, a particular size of client. Maybe you just want to focus on adding advisory services to individual clients for right now. But getting really, really good at it in one area is a great way to enhance your value, and it makes it easier for you to illustrate what that value is to your clients as well, to say, hey, we're the experts at this and we can help you with that. You want to look at figuring out where those education gaps might be on your team. So of course, if we don't have the knowledge base you might have it in your niche area. And if you do, that's great. If you don't, we really want to look at where those education gaps are and how we can start working to close them. So if you maybe choose a niche, and for me, if it's going to be, closely held S Corps, but my team is not super strong with S Corps, I really need to look at getting them some more education, some more CPE to help enhance that knowledge base so that I'm succession planning for them to be able to provide these advisory services in the future as well. I always encourage everyone, whenever you're starting kind of a new service line like this, or you're thinking about adding, enhancing, et cetera, it's helpful to really think about what your ideal client looks like in this space. So if you are going to build the perfect advisory client, what does that look like for you? I just kind of gave you some specific examples for me, but I would dive even deeper to say that I'm looking for an S Corp owner who also owns other businesses. Maybe they own the real estate that their operating entity for that S Corp is in. Maybe I want to identify a specific age, like this person might be between, 50 and 65 years old. So they're starting to look towards retirement. They're starting to look towards, what is my business going to do in 10, 15 years? Is it going to be passed on to my children? Do I need to have a different succession plan? And then where is the trust planning coming into play here for the next generation? So I have a lot of work to do in that space, because there are so many facets of that individual's life that I have to consider from a tax planning perspective. It's not as simple as just preparing an S Corp return and moving on. They have retirement advisory needs, they have trust planning needs, they might have estate planning needs, they have succession planning needs. So you can provide a lot of value with that one client, but I did a really detailed job there of describing exactly who I was looking for. So you want to kind of identify, if you're going to provide these services, what does that ideal client look like? And that feeds into my next point, do your ABC list. So I've mentioned this on some of our tax talks before. I've written a couple articles on it that you can go read on the Tax Practice News website about what your ABC list is and how to analyze your client list. So this is something that I actually really strongly recommend that you do every single year. My favorite thing to do is do this right after tax season, because we'll say the challenges are fresh in your mind. But I like to look at our client list every single year, and I put all of our clients into an A bucket, a B bucket, or a C bucket. So your A clients are your favorite clients. You love working with them. They're a great personality match for you. They really perceive the value that you provide. They might send you referrals. They're usually your highest paying clients. They always pay you on time. You're never chasing them for money. They're just a joy. And if you could duplicate your A clients, you would just be ecstatic and you would just have nothing but A clients. Those are your A clients. Hopefully you have a lot of them. But if you don't, your B clients are also a great source of your bread and butter. Those are clients that maybe they don't have all the qualities of your A clients, but they're still great, right? Like, so maybe they're not looking for as many services. Maybe they don't need to talk to you as frequently. Maybe you do have to chase them for a bill every once in a while, things like that, but they're still really providing a lot of value to the firm. And then there's your C clients. So C clients are clients that you should just get rid of. You don't like working with them. None of your team likes working with them. They are not contributing a significant portion of your revenue. Hopefully, sometimes we have to part ways with those big ones too, but they're not a good fit for you. They're not providing any type of this positive future growth to your organization. So going through this process is actually a great way to help you create some space to offer more advisory services to your A and B clients, because you're going to immediately have the time back that you were spending on your C client list to be able to provide a higher quality service to your A and B clients. And the way that you make up that C-list revenue is by immediately offering these advisory services, this next layer of the services that your A and B clients already need and already want to them, and doing it in a way that is really going to, again, provide them with that value. And then, of course, think about your budget and hours, that revenue versus budget hours that you would potentially be bringing in or using up if you are going to offer these services. Again, you might be sort of just throwing spaghetti at the wall in terms of taking guesses as to how much time versus what's the right price point for these projects. We'll talk about this more in a little bit too, in terms of, just identifying the things that are going to be the best fit for you to offer. But you want to start to think about, do we have enough time? Do we have enough team members? Is this going to bring in the projected revenue that we want? Okay, so creating space. How, aside from firing your C clients, how do we create more time in your day to be able to offer these enhanced services? We're going to talk about tech stack in just a minute. I'm going to go through my absolute favorites with you. Identify beta clients to test with your organization. So this is, you could go to your A clients. Those are the clients that you love working with and they love working with you. And you could say, hey, we are looking to start offering some more services doing X, Y, and Z. We actually think that you'd be a great fit for these services. Can we test them with you? Can we work on a project with you? Can you provide us with some feedback? If you have that relationship with any of your clients, that's a great way for you to start to refine your process. It will give you an opportunity to see how much time and energy goes into offering these types of services, see some of the questions and the things that your clients are asking and what they're asking for. It'll basically just be a great opportunity to highlight where you might need to close some gaps, where you might need to price these projects, et cetera. And especially if you have a client that's willing to give you feedback, that's a great opportunity and a place for you to start. We're going to talk about automating data collection and input. So even with advisory services, a lot of the times we need financial statements, we need tax returns, we need input in order to be good advisors. And so how do we automate that so that we're not spending time on those things, that we're really just taking information that's immediately available to us and using it to help our clients do an assessment and make a decision? Ask your clients what their priorities are. So if you're not even sure if your clients are looking for more advisory services or what they're concerned about, do a quick survey, or again, go to those clients that you have a really great relationship with and just ask them. That will point you in a great direction in terms of where are the gaps that you really need to fill for your clients with these services. Create a deliverables SOP. So SOP, standard operating procedure, you want to think about what are you going to hand them. So one of the biggest struggles that I find that we face in accounting land is that we don't have the shiny object, like the product that we deliver to our clients, unless you consider delivering them their tax return or their financial statements are deliverables, which they are. But unfortunately, as many of us know, our clients don't look at those with googly eyes and go, ooh, and ah, and super excited unless their tax return has a giant refund on it. So things that you can provide to them with these types of services that might be really helpful could be cash flow projections, could be actual physical documents that show them like where is your revenue trending for this year and how is that impacting your tax liability? If we do X for a deferred revenue plan or a retirement planning strategy, this is the dollar amount that it saves you. So think about the things that you can physically hand to them that are going to be guides, reports, charts that are going to highlight for them truly the value that they're getting for this. And then consider joint ventures as a way of creating space as well. Also, I've talked about this on some of our tax talks. I've written articles about it. I personally think this is the way of the future, is finding another expert in the field who has the ability to outsource some of this work for you. So if your practice isn't currently offering advisory services, or maybe you're not even offering a lot of tax services and you're like, well, Christine, like I don't have a lot of tax clients to begin with. How am I going to do this? Consider hiring or outsourcing with someone who's an absolute expert in this area, and ask them if they would consider doing some type of a white label joint venture where from your client's perspective, everything is still completely branded as if it's happening inside of your firm and they're not going anywhere else. They're just getting this great new service from this great new team member of yours. I think that's a great way to offer services that you're not offering right now if you can find the right partner, and that's a mutually beneficial relationship. So let's ask another polling question. I want to, we're going to get into tech stack, just ask, what is the top priority for your firm this year in terms of tech? So what tech is your top priority in 2023? Are you looking to enhance or add CRM software, tax planning, cash flow, book to tax automation? What is on the top of your list? We'll give everybody a minute to answer that. Make sure you get in your CPE. I'm excited because then we're going to talk about all of my favorite tech stacks for each of these 4 categories.
All right, we'll leave this for about 5 more seconds and then we'll move on.
Awesome.
All right, so 3, 2, and 1. Thank you.
Okay. Cash flow and projections management. Awesome. That one was a big one. Tax planning software. Okay, great. And I'm going to talk about all 4 of these, but actually cash flow projections and management has been high on my list as well. And I demoed a couple of them recently so that I could talk to them about with you. So, okay, great. Hold on just one second. Patricia, I see your question and I'm going to have Gary get with you to address that. Okay, great. So let's talk about tech stack. So I'll just kind of go through these. If you are using any of them and you have pros and cons that you want to share, please feel free to go ahead and share them in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll happily read all of those answers as well, because I love feedback. I think there's pluses and minuses to every piece of software out there, but these are personally some of my faves that I've worked with in the past. So Tax Planner Pro, that one is, if you haven't used Tax Planner Pro, the benefits is that it will connect to your accounting software. So it'll connect to softwares like QuickBooks, Xero. It will pull in your client's financial statements. So instead of you having to create manual projections, instead of you having to go through and like compare their financial statements to last year's tax returns, figure out book to tax differences, things like that, it will import both from QuickBooks and Xero, as well as allow you to import the prior year tax information. So it will kind of take your combined prior year tax return with your current year financial statement to create a projection for you inside of the software. It spits out absolutely beautiful planning reports and it makes recommendations for your clients. For example, it will notice if your client is not taking advantage of things like IRAs and 401ks. And because we talked about deliverables and how you have clients not necessarily having that nice, pretty product that they're handed, I think that this is a really great way to enhance and support a tax planning service, is by providing them with this beautiful report that says, these are the things that we've noticed, these are your projections, and here are some additional recommendations for you that we might be able to offer. Okay, and then Tax Dome, Carbon, Canopy, Mango, these are all examples of what I would consider to be CRMs. Mango is the only one that I haven't used personally, although I did demo it. It looks fantastic. I think it's becoming more popular. So if you want to take a peek at that one yourself, you can go ahead. They're all sort of similar price point. That was one of the reasons I added Mango to the list, is because personally, I'm always looking for software that's going to provide me some efficiency without a giant price tag on it. Tax Planner Pro, actually, I believe is still offering a lifetime subscription. So that's an interesting one. Instead of paying annually, you can do the lifetime subscription on that one. And then it's pretty easy, like I said, to just upload your prior year tax information. It will read your tax information, read directly from any of the companies that you're connected to in QuickBooks and Xero. So Tax Dome, Carbon, Canopy, Mango, all completely different in terms of what they really can and can't do. I personally like Tax Dome the best. That's the one that we use in our practice. I have used Carbon and Canopy as well, as I mentioned. So the things that I think I like the most about Tax Dome is the number of integrations that they have. Tax Dome also has a lot of integrations with Zapier, which I'm going to mention again in a couple of minutes. So you can create a lot of automation just through creating zaps with TaxDome. You can send your tax returns from your tax software to print directly to TaxDome, and that basically functions as your client portal as well. So you can print directly from your tax software to TaxDome, where your clients will be able to see it, review it, approve it, sign it, all those things. TaxDome also has task management, project management in there for you and your team, as does Carbon and Canopy. So I think Carbon and Canopy both do a really great job. My hangups with both of those was just a little bit more challenging from my perspective in terms of the project management side. So if you're looking for something that does a better job of that task management and tracking, I liked TaxDome a little bit better from that perspective. Anthony, great question. Any reasons I picked Tax Planner Pro versus Tax Plan IQ or Corby? Absolutely no reason at all, other than it's the one that I'm the most familiar with. But both of those other options I've heard great things about. So Tax Plan IQ or Corby, I personally haven't worked with either one of them, but my recommendation is always that you demo any software that you're interested in for at least a week or two before you make a decision. So that way you understand the pros and the cons of each and you can compare and contrast. Anthony, if you have specific reasons that you like one of the other two more than Tax Planner Pro, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A and I will be happy to share those with everybody. Appreciate it. So Canopy, I think a little bit more integration in terms of like your time tracking, going to invoicing, if you're looking for more of that sort of practice management aspect of things. Carbon, I think, does a little bit more detail with your client communication in terms of allowing them to attach files to send back to their organizers. TaxDome does all of that as well. Okay, awesome. Couple of Q&A questions. So Lori, we handle 89 to 90% of tax resolution clients. Would that change your recommendation from TaxDome to Canopy perhaps? Yeah, it might. So I personally didn't absolutely love Canopy's connection feature to the IRS for the sole reason that I found it a little cumbersome to have to get power of attorney forms for all of our clients. But in a practice where the majority of what you're dealing with is tax resolution, I would imagine it's part of your onboarding process already to collect POA forms. And since you probably already have those as part of your practice operating, then Canopy is definitely a better fit for you. The other thing that Canopy has is not just that direct API connection to be able to get things like transcripts for your clients downloaded from the IRS, but it also has they have like a data bank basically of recommended responses. So if you are a practice that's doing a lot of resolution work and you're having to write a lot of letters on behalf of your clients for resolution work, Canopy has a really great database in terms of just giving you templates for those letters. So that can be a huge time saving just from that perspective. Really great question. I completely agree with you. Okay. And then let's see, Paul, any advice on software that can automate bookmark PDF tax returns out of ProConnect online? Yes. So actually, give me 1 minute. I am going to answer that. This is something that actually you can probably find it in a little bit more detail because I won't have time to do a ton of detail today. But I did a webinar last week on using ChatGPT in your practice. And one of the things that came up in that webinar is there is a software called PDF Element. So you can look up PDF Element. And that has an API integration directly built into the PDF software where you can do a ton more in terms of editing your PDF. The API integration will actually allow you to summarize the PDF, explain the PDF. So it will actually write little blurbs for you about the tax return that you can then provide to your client, explaining some of the things on the tax return. And it does all of the bookmarking for you. So a lot of integration there if you want to look up PDF Element. And then Alicia, gathering 8821 IRS transcripts. Yes. So again, I think that's where the Canopy question came up. Canopy did have an API integration that they were offering where it allowed you to get transcript copies directly downloaded into the software, provided that you had a power of attorney form. I'm seeing more and more now in terms of transcripts, the clients setting up their ID.me profiles. So going to the IRS website and setting up those online profiles and being able to request transcript copies there, being honestly the best methodology in terms of requesting those transcripts. Good questions. So again, Taxome, Carbon, Canopy, great CRM softwares. I did just mention that I did a webinar last week on ChatGPT and using that in your practice. So we had a bunch of efficiencies that came up last week in terms of letter writing, email writing. I'll talk about this again too when we talk about rolling these services out to your clients in a couple of minutes. Some of the ways that you can use this API chat feature to do some of the work for you, writing blog posts, writing newsletters, writing responses to client emails, again, letters, etc. For conversions, for book to tax conversions, meaning you are either converting your trial balance and you want to document your book to tax journal entries, or even just push your trial balance, your tax trial balance to your tax software. I love Tally4. So Tally4 will integrate again with QuickBooks Zero. You can even import a trial balance just from Excel. If you have a client that is just giving you their TB in Excel, maybe they're not a bookkeeping client and that's how they're providing it to you, you can put that into Tally4, do all of your book to tax adjustments right there. It spits out beautiful work papers, and then it will push your tax trial balance to the tax software for you. So that's a huge savings in terms of data entry. It will also push to multiple versions of a tax return. So for example, if you wanted to do a Q1 projection because you're providing some planning services, you could take that Q1 trial balance, name it in Tally4 as that's what you're doing, so that you're not confusing it with a year-end trial balance that you used for last year's tax return. And you could actually push it to a version 2 of your tax return and see what those numbers do to help create some projection information for you. And that will save you a lot of time in terms of trying to manually manipulate those numbers and input them to run projections. And then the cash flow and the forecasting. So these are two that I found in my research that I thought the price point was pretty reasonable on: Plan Guru and Cash Flow Frog. We've actually been demoing Cash Flow Frog in our practice. I really like it so far. I think it's a little pricey if you have a lot of clients that you want to put into this system, because the price point goes up in increments of like 5 and 10. So if you have more than 10 clients who you're going to be using this for and providing cash flow projections for, just keep the price point of this software in mind when you're pricing out your project to them. But I really love it. It integrates again with QuickBooks and Zero. It will pull in all of your customers' information. It will do 12-month cash flow projections. It spits out beautiful reports, so really supports you in terms of offering those deliverables like I mentioned. So these are just my favorites. There's other really awesome softwares out there that I personally have not used, so I have less of an ability to comment on them. Obviously, if you're in the Intuit family, everything links to each other. So you have the ability to push information directly from QuickBooks files to any of the Intuit tax softwares without having to hand key it. With your tax classification codes and things like that. These are really great projects to be working on over the summer, especially if you have newer team members or interns that you're going to have over the summer, because it helps them to familiarize themselves with the financial information, with the clients, with the softwares, and then you've got all of that data management in there automated and ready for you to go. Alicia, will Tally4 only do trial balance, and can it be used for consolidating multi-company with several classes used for 3 rentals and 2 businesses? Awesome question. I believe the last time I checked, the answer was no to that. I believe that it cannot. You would have to import a an already consolidated trial balance. I know that they've been doing a lot of work on that, so I don't know if that's still the case, but the last time that I used it, you would have to have imported the consolidated trial balance in order to produce that consolidated work paper. Lori, I know this is long. Okay. We really could use some insight. Let's see, more tax resolution. We do have tax and bookkeeping clients, and we also use tax help software. Okay. It's better transcript analysis. Got it. We already have a way to pull transcripts and templates, but would you still say that Taxdome is enough in terms of the way that it would manage processes and help us make sure to keep touch points consistent with clients with their case? Okay, so if the touch point in the communication with clients is what you're really looking for help with, I think Taxdome is far and away superior to the others in terms of that client communication. It has an app that your clients can download to their phones as well, where they can access all of the documents that you've provided to them 24/7, including copies of their transcripts, copies of their tax returns. The app allows them to take pictures of any documents that they need to send to you and immediately securely upload them. They can sign documents through Taxdome. So they can sign your power of attorney. They can sign their tax return through Taxdome. It has an instant messaging feature. So if you need to ask them for something, you can message them in Taxdome and it will pop up as a notification on their phone. Same for you. When they message you back, you will get an email saying that they've added to the conversation in Taxdome. It tracks all of it for you. It connects to your Outlook as well, and it will automatically like sort all of your emails to your client files in Taxdome for you. So that's a really efficient way to save documentation when your clients are emailing you a lot and you're trying to find something. So I think in terms of client communication, that touch point, Taxdome does a superior job in terms of making the clients feel like they're being communicated with. It also does a really beautiful job, I think better personally, in my opinion, than Carbon and Canopy, of generating organizers or tasks lists for your client. So you can actually add a task checklist to a message that you send to a client. Say they need to upload their power of attorney, copy of last year's tax, whatever it might be. You can send them a message and say, hey, John, I need you to upload a copy of your estimated payment check and a copy of this. And you can actually include those as little check tasks in that message. And they will continue to get automatically reminded until they check those off. So my personal opinion, that Taxdome is really superior in terms of the communication piece of things. Hopefully that helps answer. Okay, good. All right, perfect. I'm glad to hear that was helpful. The other thing too, that I'll just say this quickly and then we'll move on. I also think that personally, Taxdome's training is far superior to some of the others. They do a really phenomenal job of very hands-on training and allow you to book sessions with them for up to 45 minutes 3 times a week if you need help with any of the setup or the features or things like that. So I think that's a really phenomenal feature as well. So some quick app integrations that you can consider too, and these are just quick time savings techniques. HubSpot and Calendly to allow your clients to book meetings with you automatically. I think Calendly does a slightly better job, but it will overlay your existing calendar so that clients can't book meetings where you already have time blocked off. But that's a really great and easy way to enhance that feeling of communication with your clients, that they're able to book a meeting with you whenever they feel like they need to. Creating zaps. This was a great one, actually, that last week in my ChatGPT presentation, I showed people how to ask ChatGPT to create zaps for them. I am admittedly not great in terms of tech. So when it comes to how to create a zap between my softwares, I need a little bit of help. So now I can ask GPT to give me the step-by-step instructions for creating zaps between my softwares. Any way that I can automate things and have things go automatically back and forth, that is something that I want to have happen. So Zapier is a great way to do that. Do I prefer HubSpot to something like Keep for bringing in new leads and turning them into prospects? It really depends. So again, so many of these are able to have additional integrations because of Zapier now. The reason I like HubSpot is because it has so many zaps available to it. So when a new client lead comes into our website, it's via our HubSpot link. It allows them to book their initial meeting. It captures their email address. It automatically creates a contact for us in our email marketing software. So I don't have to do any of that manually. So that's one of the reasons I like it. I don't know enough about Keep, but again, I typically look for software that has a Zapier integration because I know that it's going to provide me with more automation than just what that software offers. And then Teams or Slack. just to make sure that you have efficient communication amongst your team during the day. 1Password I have found to be a huge time saving in terms of asking your clients to share passwords with you that you might need. So if you need to access their payroll to run payroll reports, to reconcile those, if you need to access bank statements, things like that, 1Password is a great secure password feature that allows you to have both shared and private vaults so that you can have some shared passwords that the whole team might need or you and your client both need, as well as a private vault for anything that you don't want to share. So those are just some quick time savings tips. Okay. So a couple more questions. I would love to view your webinar in ChatGPT. Yeah, so we did it last week. I'll see if we can find it in the archive for you. And then I'm hopefully, okay, great. Email software do I use? Yes, I use MailChimp. I know there's some other ones out there. I personally love MailChimp. And again, because I look for things that have Zaps connected to them, MailChimp has a ton of Zaps connected to it. So I'm able to really automate my email list a lot easier. And I can ask ChatGPT now to write my blog posts and my newsletters for me. So announcing new services really quick, because I know we're running out of time and I don't want to go over. I want to make sure we have time for any more questions. So things that you want to just think about in terms of, all right, I'm now going to enhance or add services. You want to make sure that people know. So if you did a beta test with one or more of your clients, ask them for testimonials that you can use to share with other clients in terms of why they might be interested in these services. It will help to highlight, again, the value that we're driving towards. Send a newsletter out. You can have ChatGPT write it for you. Bring it up during client meetings. So if you're already having meetings with clients, if they're asking you questions about, hey, when is my next estimated payment due? Ask to schedule a meeting and then share the value of what an enhanced consulting package or an enhanced planning package might be able to do for them. Host a quick webinar and provide your clients with some value during that webinar. So share with them some tips and tricks that they might not know about right now that starts to highlight what you would bring to the table if they were going to work with you for an enhanced level of tax planning and consulting services. And then share your new efficiencies as well. I think it's really important to talk to your clients about the things that you are doing to drive efficiency and to help reduce your, you don't have to tell them burnout, but to help to create time and space in your workload, because it is the perception of all of our clients that we are super busy and that we don't have time for things. Remember, I told you that's one of the reasons why clients leave their current accounting firm. So you want to really share with them how you're being proactive about making space for this so they know that you're going to be responsive to them if they're going to hire you for this additional service. Okay. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to skip the Q&A slide, but I will keep my eye on the Q&A box if you have any questions that you want to answer or ask in the last couple of minutes. But next steps for you, consider what services would be the natural fit. So that's where I said you really want to look at your client list and figure out where can we just add more value to our existing clients. That's a natural fit for you. That's going to be the easiest next step in terms of adding or enhancing the services that you're already offering. Identify profitability metrics. That means you need to have an idea of how you're going to figure out if this is working, how you're going to figure out if these new services are profitable, how you're going to identify whether or not this is a positive next step that you want to continue after the first 6 months, after the first year. So identify, what you're going to use as your kind of goalpost for measuring that. What clients do you already have that can benefit from some additional services? These are all things that you can start to think about this afternoon. Identifying your constraints and your opportunities. So if you look at whether it's time constraints, education constraints, any of those challenges that we talked about earlier, so just identifying them right off the bat, you're not going to fix them this afternoon, but if you identify them, that will give you the next steps in terms of what are the things that you need to address before you can do this really, really well. And then build out your process. How are you going to communicate with clients? How are you going to collect data from them? How are you going to automate that data input? Start thinking about those things. Who can you beta test it with? And then roll it out. So that's where we're going to do the newsletter, the announcement, the webinar, all of those things. And I will just take a breath and see what questions we have left.
I'm going to
The
throw that last polling question up too. We do need to
Oh,
get.
yes. Perfect. Last polling question. Don't skip this. If you're here for CPE, make sure you answer the last polling question. Are you interested in learning more about cyber risks and ways to protect your data? All of you should answer yes. We've done some great articles as well as I think a tax talk on this as well that you can find on the YouTube channel. And actually, I promised I would put up the link to the YouTube channel as
Yeah,
well.
actually, I already put that in the chat, and I looked to see we've not posted the Chat GPT archive yet
Okay.
on the YouTube channel, but I did post the direct link to that, which is still sitting in Zoom in the chat as well. So
Okay, great.
you should be able to download those things from there. The slide deck was also placed in the chat, and we will also include these in the follow-up that will go out within about 24 hours.
Awesome.
A couple of things that I wanted to throw out before we run out of time. Question for you, and I know this will be different for every firm, but when you look at moving a client more to an advisory model, what are maybe the two top things that you look for?
Yeah, so this is probably a client who has, they might have grown. So you may have been working with them for a while and they may have grown from their original space. And so they are just, you can tell they're in need of more services, right? Like their business might be making more money. Maybe they got married. Maybe they had a child. Maybe they're nearing retirement. You haven't talked about some of these things. So something has changed since you originally started working with them. And we haven't addressed those changes in terms of tax planning strategy. So that's one really easy litmus test. You can usually tell by some of the questions that the client is asking you as well. Like they might be asking you more questions or more pointed questions, and that's somebody that's looking for assistance. Clients that are already responsive to you are also a great litmus test of who's going to be a good fit. The clients that aren't a good fit are the clients that truly don't talk to you until they show up once a year with their tax return, and you don't know whether or not they're ever going to show up until the last minute. Those are not the first clients that you want to approach for advisory services. They already don't see the value as much of a client as a client that you're in constant communication with.
Okay, and then I'm going to address. You also talked about kind of that C and D clients. I think you mentioned it that way, or maybe you just mentioned A and B clients, but or I might be totally confusing it with a conversation I had yesterday with. I don't know if you've heard of Tax Titans or if anyone on this call or this session has heard of Tax Titans, but they're basically, the easiest way to put it, they're kind of like a dating app for tax preparers and accounting professionals. So basically, one thing that one of their talking points is that, if you have clients that you want to get rid of and you want to be, and you don't want to burn any bridges, you basically can have that conversation and say, look, you're not a good fit for me, but you can go and find everything you need, or, here at this Tax Titans. Worth taking a look at. It's also a place where people can, where preparers or accounting firms can actually pick up new business and either outsource business or raise their hand and say, hey, I've got some available time or bandwidth, pick up some additional clients or some outsourced work. And again, it's Tax-Titans. They launched about a year ago, maybe 14 or 15 months ago. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think that is a really important part of closing that conversation with any client that you're looking to offboard, is to say, here's a recommendation for you to consider that would be a better fit, that helps to not burn that bridge. If you guys I saw a couple questions on the slide deck. If you're looking for the slide deck, it will be emailed out to you. So if you don't see the link for whatever reason in the chat, we'll send that out. And then let's see, Tax Titans, Gary, that's what you called it? Tax.
that is correct. TAX-TITANS.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and we actually we had them on our podcast yesterday. It probably won't be live until 2 Mondays from now.
Awesome.
So go check them out. Well, I think we have exhausted the questions.
Okay.
We have put the slide deck into the chat twice. Hopefully you have that. We have the link for the YouTube channel in the chat as well. along with the direct link to the Chat GPT webinar from last week. And Christine's got one more thing for you there.
Oh, this is just if you are looking for some of the content that we discussed, you can also scan the QR code to subscribe to the tax practice news, and some of the articles that I've talked about are in there, as well as the YouTube channel.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thanks for taking an hour out of your day to come and learn a little bit. Christine, thank you for spending, I'm sure, more than an hour preparing this and delivering this. We certainly appreciate it. And I'm sure, I know, Christine, you and I will talk soon. Everybody else, hopefully we will see you in the next session, which starts at 2 o'clock Eastern. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.